The kettlebell swing is hands down the most iconic kettlebell exercise, and rightfully so. The kettlebell swing has a ton of incredible benefits, including developing explosive power with the hips, enhancing grip strength, and even improving conditioning. But despite the swing being a fundamental kettlebell exercise, it's actually fairly complex because of the transfer of energy from the lower half of the body to the upper half of the body that takes place with every rep, which unfortunately trips up a lot of beginners and even intermediate level kettlebell practitioners and shows up in a wide variety of poor movement patterns. And this is exactly why in today's video, I'll be breaking down the top 3 kettlebell mistakes and how to avoid them so you can maximize the benefits of each and every swing. And if you stick around to the end of this video, I have a bonus tip that I think you'll find extremely beneficial. But before we get started, I have a quick question for you. Do you start your kettlebell swings like this? You know, taking a few small swings to build up momentum before doing a full swing? If so, I would like to introduce you to mistake number 1. This is known as the hump start, and the old 3-pump jump approach is a really inefficient way to start a kettlebell swing that is disappointing for all parties involved. Honey, did you put this line in here? The reason being is that we are trying to develop explosive power in the hips with this exercise, meaning we want to go from 0 to 100 as fast as possible. And the way we make this happen is with a hiking motion, which leads us to a question. How far away should we be from our kettlebell before initiating the hike? And a really good way to gauge this distance is to take the big toe of one foot to the body of the kettlebell, then take the big toe of the second foot to the heel of the first foot, which gives us the proper distance before taking our stance, hinging at the hips, and hiking the bell. So now that we know how to hike the kettlebell, it's smooth sailing from here, right? Well, not exactly. You see, there's another mistake that really steals the momentum of the kettlebell on your backswing and diminishes the intended benefit of this exercise, and is also one of the most common with new kettlebell users. The mistake I'm referring to here is treating the kettlebell swing like a squat pattern instead of a hinge pattern, because the kettlebell swing is in fact a hinge, meaning that we want to keep our hips above the knee in this exercise. And the reason for this is when you squat a kettlebell swing and have your hips drop below the knee, hips are moving in a more up and down fashion, which abruptly stops the momentum of the kettlebell on the backswing and typically leads to utilizing the shoulders too much to make up for the lost momentum. So if you want to be as explosive as possible, make sure your hips stay above your knee in the backswing, and remember that your hips should largely move forward and back, which also allows the kettlebell to travel in a smooth, curvilinear path so you can maximize the stretch of your hamstrings and use elasticity of those stretched muscles to launch the kettlebell up using your hips. That is, if you avoid mistake number 3, which is missing the connection between forearm and hips on the descent, which happens when we send our hips back before our forearms make contact with our hips, when the kettlebell drops from its apex, that is. Remember how I mentioned the importance of transferring energy from your legs to your arms at the beginning of this video? The only way we can effectively do this is by patiently waiting for your forearms to make contact with your hips before the backswing. Just imagine like you're playing a game of chicken. Only the players involved are the kettlebell and your crotch. Now, over the past 12 years of coaching, you can rest easy knowing that I have never once seen somebody actually hit themselves in the genitals when performing this exercise. So rest easy knowing that you are safe while perfecting this connection between your forearm and hip. With that said, I have seen a couple on the receiving end of a gooch smooch from the old cast iron cannonball, which is a rather unpleasant experience, but easily avoidable with this bonus tip. You see, there is another extremely common mistake that kettlebell practitioners make, but this one usually happens a little bit later in the journey once they start to feel more relaxed in their kettlebell swing technique. Sometimes we get too relaxed though, and the kettlebell flips up behind us before abruptly jerking back down, which throws off our rhythm for the next swing and can be tough on our elbows. This error is known as the kettlebell whip, and typically happens from having too loose of a grip on the kettlebell or from the wrist going into flexion on the backswing. So even when you get comfortable with your kettlebell swing, make sure you give that handle a firm squeeze to maintain a neutral wrist to avoid the unpleasant experience of a kettlebell flaccidly flopping into your fleshy fun bridge. And that, ladies and gentlemen, concludes this breakdown of the kettlebell swing. Now, while the kettlebell swing is an amazing exercise for developing explosive power, unfortunately, this technique alone isn't enough to branch out into more advanced kettlebell complexes that may require you to catch a kettlebell in the front rack position or even overhead. So if you really want to take your kettlebell training to the next level, you're going to need other skills like the kettlebell clean and the kettlebell snatch. And if you want to learn how to perfectly execute these techniques, check out one of these videos here, and I'll see you on the next one.